small bore, you're on a flat floor. Out there, you're on a flat floor. Not the case in full bore. You're all over the place. Sometimes you have 7 or 8 degrees of mound slope, like there is on the 300 metre concrete. There's about 7 degrees on that. That makes a big difference to the trim of the rifles. Actual trim, you've got to adjust the butt, you may have to drop the forearm back and tighten the sling. But irrespective of what it is, you have to find out what it is that causes you to point at the target. And every range that you shoot on in full bore is totally different than what it is when you're shooting small bore on a floor. The big advantage for me in dry firing was that every time I shot internationally, I was the same as when I was laying on my lounge room floor. So I could pick out a technique and get it finalised, and then just put it in the diary, dial it up when I got to Germany, had a look at the firing point, no slope, flat, this is good. Just dial it up, bang, first sight, right in the bucket. This is a big thing, but in full bore, it's totally different. I don't know if any of you have shot on Malabar, but some of the bloody mounds on Malabar are terrible. A few of you have shot at Wingham, and they're 300 metres vertically uphill. Yes. Well, that's about a 10 or 12 degree slope, and that's almost impossible to control in terms of where, and that's one of the reasons why they shoot 5, 6 and 6. And the firing point of 600 is quite a good one. Nice and reasonably level, it's about 2 degrees of slope. But any of you people know Fernando Gregorio? You know Fern? He's got a technique of adjusting his butt, which I found is probably as good as I've ever seen. And he arrived at it by measuring the angles on all of the firing points he ever shot on. We spent quite a bit of time down on Wellsford Range in Victoria for the Victorian Queens, and we measured every single mount. And the slopes varied from 2 degrees to 4 degrees, and then to 7 degrees, and back to 2. So it was all over the bloody shop whenever we learned how it was. The big thing about that range down there was the fact that the actual top level of the firing points was reasonably level, but the back of your position was laying downwards. So that made a big difference to the natural aiming point. And you had to find out where it is. And if you learn where the natural aiming point is, particularly when we work on it this afternoon, I'll find out straight away what actually happens in terms of shot release and natural aiming point according to the slope of the firing point, and we will make those notes in your diary, what the adjustments on the rifles are. The trim of the rifle is pretty important in full bore. It governs the strike of the recoil, it governs the left side and right side of your position in terms of strength, and it's one of the things that I'll be testing, but fortunately the 500 firing point is probably the best on this range.
So what sort of adjustments do you make if it's like a larger slope?
If it's a larger slope, you need to drop the butt a little bit so the rifle rotates downwards.
Right.
And
so you just hold the shoulder a little bit lower, or?
No, you don't need. If you make any adjustments to the geometry of the position in the forearm and the back of the rifle, that position in the shoulder must remain the same.
Right. So you just where the fitting goes up and down.
Yeah.
Yep. So, with regards to things like that, on some of the ranges that I've shot at near the end, so like target 1 and here target 15, 14 on the other side, when you're shooting at some of the ranges on target 1, you kind of line down like that. What would you advise in that scenario?
Just be careful of where you put your left arm. If it's too far to the left, your position will be so weak it's not funny. The scores you'll shoot will probably be 44s. Whereas on the other side of the range, you might find that your right side of your position is lower. And it's easier to shoot with the right elbow higher than it is too low. As a recoil, when the, it's really dangerous to have a right-handed shooter with the right side of your position weak. If it feels weak, fix it. You might need to rotate a little bit, come in over the top of your elbow a fraction, as long as it doesn't go to the right of the barrel. You can look down and you can just see where it is, and if that elbow's right in underneath the barrel's here, you fire a shot, the recoil will go thrash. That'll be the first thing you say, oh geez, that needs fixing. And then you've only got one extra side.
As far as what we were talking about with mound positions and things and the different orientations of them, one of the first things you need to really look at when you're approaching the mound before you start, you've got your allocated lane, is to physically look at the terrain and work out the best place to put the mat.
Exactly.
Don't put your mat so your left elbow is going to be in a hole. Work out angles and just have a good look at it. Put your mat down and have a dummy lie down and have a feel of it. And just spend as much time doing that as well, because that's got to be the starting point.
Yeah.
Has to start there.
It's attention to detail, mate. Simple as that. I remember Duncan shot a match on Malabar with his left elbow in a rabbit hole. Wondered why he was getting 6 o'clock shots. You got 48 with 2 6 o'clock ins. I haven't seen that out of him for a while. In his defence, the rabbit hole had been filled in, but it collapsed under where he put his elbow. So the point that Phil made there is quite valid. Check where you want to, and try and see if you can get, particularly for a right-handed shooter, try and see if you can get a position where the right elbow is fractionally higher than the left. If it slopes downwards, the rifle will go like that, and so will the recoil, and so will the scores. It's just a matter of, like I said before, attention to detail with what's going on. I think probably the worst mounds I've ever shot on was out in Mudgee. They were terrible.
They haven't changed.
No, they have now, it's finished.
Oh, it's closed it.
Then you close the range. So it's, I also shot through a plague of bloody locusts out there one day. I'm pretty, I got a bird at 600 and I reckon I hit a grasshopper in the middle of it somewhere. Shot was all right when it left me, so what's that about it?